Dear students, it's a pleasure to be with you again. I'm so sorry for the 2 minutes delay. I had some troubles with one of my students of the last group because she arrived super late to class, and I had to respond some questions she had. So it was that was the reason why we started 2 minutes later. Nonetheless, we're gonna I think it's gonna be sufficient anyways for today's content. And as I said, we always have this 5 minutes tolerance so that we can, of course, wait for the rest of your classmates so that the majority is here and the majority manage to see the classes, of course, online or live, right? Because it's a completely different, right? To rewatch the class. Sometimes you have some questions and you're not able to ask them and you don't have an immediate response when you're rewatching the classes. But when you are able to be here with me, I can respond to those questions or concerns, right? Wonderful. But let us start with today's topic. As I told you yesterday, we are going to be discussing today the next question types of the reading section. And because we need to cover a lot of material, let us start right now with the presentation that, as I say, it's going to be super important for you to practice with me tomorrow. I sent a message. I'm so sorry, this is another one. I sent a message to the WhatsApp group informing you about the recovery class of tomorrow morning, and I hope you read the message and you already know and you have already made your conversions about the time. But as I say, even if you're not able to join us tomorrow, all the practice and the material that we're going to use in order to be exercising our knowledge of the reading section is going to be sent to the WhatsApp group so that you can practice by yourself in your free time. All right, so don't worry about tomorrow's class. For those of you who are able to join me, I'm going to be delighted to have you. But for those of you who are not able because you have other activities, don't worry. You're going to have tolerance in the assistance, and also, as I say, all the material used in the class is going to be sent directly to the WhatsApp group so that you cannot so you cannot miss any single detail of our practice. Okay, fantastic. But nonetheless, let us continue, as I said, with the reading section and the different types of questions. Okay, so let's see. Yesterday we finished with the 5th type of question, and let us go directly to the 6th type of question, which is called a detailed question. This is actually a very easy question. So let us start. The detailed information question, that is the number 6 in all our list about different types of questions in the TOEFL exam, is called detailed question for a very simple reason. Because this question is going to ask about information stated in a small part of the passage. As you can see, that is basically the cause that provokes the title of this section. Basically, as I say, a very tiny part or a small part of the passage is going to be the source for you to look and to go and find the response for the question. It only asks, what does the passage say? The correct answer does not necessarily have to be written in the exact way as in the paragraph, but it will contain exactly the same information. You know, the students, this is the type of question that you normally find in your university or high school if you studied in South America or Central America. Why? Because in South America and Central America, it happens that when we have an examination, our professor gives us a topic, right? He says, please study and read from page 20 until page 30. And on the day of the exam, the professor takes that content, he prepares some questions about the topic that we have read. And he says, for example, if in the page 23, it was talked about the French Revolution, then he asks, right, in the exam, when was the French Revolution? What was the French Revolution? Who started the French Revolution, right? It's always a question about the material we read. A question basically that is asking us to state the same information that the professor gave us as a topic for our exam, right? And that is exactly what we're going to do here. As you can see, I'm going to show you right now an illustration and you're going to understand. So for example, let us read right now this reading passage for us to understand this question very easily, all right? It's on the right side. It says, paleontologists have argued for a long time that the demise of the dinosaurs was caused by climatic alterations associated with the slow changes in the positions of continents and seas resulting from plate tectonics. Off and on throughout the Cretaceous, the last period of the Mesozoic era, during which dinosaurs flourished, large, shallow seas covered extensive areas of continents. Data from diverse sources, including geochemical evidence preserved in seafloor sediments, indicate that the late Cretaceous climate was milder than today's. The days were not too hot, nor the nights too cold. The summers were not too warm, nor the winters too frigid. The shallow seas on the continents probably buffered the temperature of the nearby air, keeping it relatively constant. Fantastic. That is the reading passage that we have right now as an illustration. Now, let us see the question that is on the left side of the screen. It says, according to paragraph 1, which of the following is true of the late Cretaceous climate? As you can see, it's basically asking you, what does the passage say? In this case, you don't have to interpret anything. You don't have to look for the reasoning train. You don't have to conclude anything. You don't have to make an inference, not at all. As I say, this is the normal type of questions that we receive in South American and Central American examinations. If the professor gives you a topic, then you read it, and on the exam, you receive a question, as I say, about the reading passage, simply asking you to express the same information that you study about. And this is this question. As you can see, according to paragraph 1, which of the following is true of the late Cretaceous climate, right? There is no very much technique for this question, but nonetheless, I have some recommendations for you. The only thing you must do here is to read all the necessary parts of the paragraph to find the answer. It could be the entire passage or just the relevant portion. Once you found the portion, remind that the correct answer will express the same information, as I say. Maybe the words will be different, but the content must be equal, right? For example, I don't know if in the exam you had about the French Revolution, in the book you had in order to study said that I don't know, the French Revolution started as a political and artistic movement that influenced all the European nations. Maybe on the exam the professor uses other words, right? He says, for example, the French Revolution was started by politicians and started by artists, and it affected countries like, I don't know, France, Spain, I don't know, Great Britain, and any other country of Europe. If the professor gives you that answer and asks you about the information that you studied in your book, in the text he gave you in order for you to study, the response will be correct, right? Because it doesn't matter if the professor doesn't give you an answer with the exact same words. The problem, or excuse me, the point here would be that if you find an answer that expresses the same information that you study about, that is going to be fine. It doesn't matter. As I say, the only thing you need to look for is a response that expresses the same information, maybe with very, very different words, or maybe with a subtle and a slight difference. But the point is that if it expresses the same information, it is going to be a correct answer. All right. Now, wrong answers will typically try to confuse you by linking some ideas found in the passage erroneously. False answers will also use some correct vocabulary from the passage, but they will not actually respond to the question or will direct it to an irrelevant end. This is how to identify wrong answers. They will typically try to confuse you by linking some ideas found in the passage erroneously, okay? As I say, not because a response mentions something that is correct and that was indeed included in the reading passage means that that is the correct answer. The correct answer must, as I say, express the information in the reading passage accurately, without connecting ideas erroneously, without confusing terms or ideas. False answers also use correct vocabulary from the passage, but they will not actually respond to the question or will direct it to an irrelevant end. Basically, they are going to try to, if you are trying to understand the French Revolution, they're going to try to talk about Napoleon, just about Napoleon and not the French Revolution, right? As you can see, they are going to deviate the topic. So those are the let's say the traits or characteristics that false responses have. Now, let us see this example we have here. So it says, which of the following is true of the late Cretaceous climate, right? According to paragraph 1. And here we have read the paragraph 1 already. Which of the following is true of the late Cretaceous climate? Summers were very warm and winters very cold. Shallow seas on the continents caused frequent temperature changes. The climate was very similar to today's climate, or the climate did not change dramatically from season to season. Which one is the correct answer? In this case, if you see, let us examine all these responses one by one. Summers were very warm and winters very cold. Now, if you look at this answer and if you read the reading passage again, you, I think, are going to understand very easily that this is not a correct answer. Why is not a correct answer? It's not because if you read the passage again, the contrary information is stated in the reading passage. That is to say, this is actually the opposite to what the reading passage says. Because if you read, for example, here it says, the days were not too hot, nor the nights too cold. And here it says, summers were very warm and winters very cold. So definitely, right? This is, again, confusing the information. If the passage says that something is white, in the incorrect response, they're going to tell you that it's black, or they're going to tell you that it was, I don't know, light blue. As you can see, they are confusing things. This is not the correct answer. The second one, shallow seas on the continents cause frequent temperature changes. Now, again, shallow seas on the continent cause frequent temperature changes. Is this the correct answer? Is not. Why? Because shallow seas on the continents cause frequent temperature changes. If you read the passage, it never says that it was the shallow seas that caused temperature changes, right? It says, if you read again, often throughout the Cretaceous, large shallow seas cover extensive areas of the continents, right? Data from diverse sources, including geochemical evidence preserved in seafloor sediments, indicate that the late Cretaceous climate was milder than today's, right? It never says about anything that, or suggesting that shallow seas were the cause of frequent temperature changes, right? Nothing at all. So this is not the correct answer again. What about the third one? The climate was very similar to today's climate. Well, again, this could be very tempting. Why? Because the climate was very similar to today's climate. If you live in a place where the climate it's very much, let's say, stable and it's super template, that is to say, it's not too warm or it's too cold, maybe you are tempted to, hey, this sounds good, right? Because the climate in the reading passage is said was not too cold, nor it was too warm. So maybe you are tempted to say, hey, but this is true. So I'm going to say that this is the correct answer. But remind, you need to express the information mentioned in the reading passage, not something that is true for your own life or for your context. So maybe this is right, that in your case, because you live in a place where it's super template, you can say, well, it's true that the climate was very similar to mine. But imagine that somebody from Nigeria receives this, right, in which cold seasons are super extreme, or in Canada or in Alaska, right? It's going to be absurd to believe that this is a correct answer. So remind, you don't have to apply any of your own experience or your own context into the responses. Let the information to guide you. And in the information, nothing is mentioned about a comparison with regard to that time's climate and today's climate. Finally, the correct response is the climate did not change dramatically from season to season. Why is this the correct answer? As I say, because it expresses the information mentioned in the reading passage, not with the same words. Of course, not with the same words, because if it would be mentioning the correct response with the exact same words, you would be able to identify it easily. Anybody would be able to identify it easily, and that is not what they want. So as I say, not necessarily it's going to have the same words, but it must express the same idea or the same information expressed in the reading passage. As you can see, this is the correct answer. Why? Because it says here, the days were not too hot, nor the nights too cold. The summers were not too warm, nor the winters too frigid. So basically it's telling you the climate did not change dramatically from season to season, right? Because nothing was too warm, nor it was too cold. Nothing during the days was too, I don't know, too hot, nor anything was too frigid during the nights. So what is telling you? That the climate did not change dramatically from season to season, right? This is what it says, although not with the same words, as I say, not necessary, okay? Just leave the information, let the information to guide you, and that is all you need in order to respond to this question, okay? How to identify this type of question? Well, as I say, it's very objective. This is the most objective type of question in the exam, because you are never going to be requested to interpret anything, to make a conclusion, to compare anything. No, just simply have to, as I say, read the passage and find a response that expresses the same information accurately, with different words, of course, but nonetheless accurately and precisely. Is there any question about this one, dear students? Something that I could clarify how to respond this one? Paulina, Alexander, Camila, Nathalie, Guadalupe, Lucia, do you have any question about this type of question? Any concerns, something that I could clarify? No? No questions? Okay, no questions. Fantastic. Let's continue then. The seventh type of question. What is this one? Let me go to the next slide. The type of reading negative factual information question. This is the seventh type of question. Now, if you look at this one, what is it? It says this type of question will ask you to identify something that is not textually stated in the passage. In order to complete this task appropriately, you must read the entire portion you are required to and pay attention to all details. Let me show it to you. You're going to understand way better when we get into the example. So, let us read in this case the passage. Okay, it says, dissatisfaction with conventional explanations for dinosaur extinctions led to a surprising observation that in turn has suggested a new hypothesis. Many plants and animals disappear abruptly from the fossil record as one moves from layer of rock documenting the end of the Cretaceous up into rocks representing the beginning of the Cenozoic, the era after the Mesozoic. Between the last layer of Cretaceous rock and the first layer of Cenozoic rock, there is often a thin layer of clay. Scientists felt that they could get an idea of how long the extinctions took by determining how long it took to deposit this 1 centimeter of clay, and they thought they could determine the time it took to deposit the clay by determining the amount of the element iridium it contained. All right, fantastic. This is the reading passage. Now let us see the question. It says in paragraph 4, all the following questions are answered except. This word except is how you're going to identify this type of question. Every single time you see a sentence and at the end of the sentence you find the word except, you can identify and say, oh, this is a negative factual question. Basically, it's telling you all these things are true except all these sentences and statements are mentioned in the reading passage, except basically it's like that game that we play when we were children that always requested us to respond. What was the intruder in a group of objects? I don't know if you receive a picture of different animals, but there was a hammer among that group of animals, you would say, hey, this is the intruder, right? El intruso. Why? Because as I say, there is a group of things that are from a particular group, but there is one that does not belong to that group. In this case, all of these sentences here, the 4 options you have, 3 of them are true. That is to say, 3 of them are discussed in the reading passage, but 1 is not. And you have to find the response, the statement that is not discussed nor mentioned in the reading passage. All right? Super simple. Now, recommendations for negative factual questions. Read the entire portion you are required to while paying attention to every detail. Afterwards, do not forget that the correct answer must not be textually stated in the paragraph. This is all you need to know in order to respond the question. Because if you see, it's asking you, all the following questions are answered except, you remember, for example, when we were in the inference question, I told you, right? An inference is a conclusion you can make out of the information you have. And an inference is something you conclude that is not in the paragraph. But in this case, it's the opposite. You need to look for something that is not in the paragraph or not in the reading passage. That is to say, the answer you're looking for right now is something that has not been discussed textually. Maybe the reading passage suggests something, but if it doesn't mention it textually, objectively, it doesn't say with letters, this is this, or this is not this, that is not part of the reading passage. So you have to look for textual absences. That is to say, if something is absent in the reading passage, that is going to be your correct answer, okay? So always look for, as I say, textual absences. Textual absences, basically, as I say, are statements, sentences that are not written about nor discussed with letters in the reading passage. Maybe they are suggested, but if they are suggested, it doesn't mean that they are textual references, okay? You need to look for textual absences. Now, some answers may be rationally inferred from the passage, as I told you, but this doesn't collaborate to respond. Focus on textual absences. Look for what is not in the text, okay? What is not in the text, what is not objectively part of the reading passage, that is going to be your correct answer, because that is not something discussed in the passage, okay? So in this case, which one it is? The first option says, why is there a layer of clay between the rocks of the Cretaceous and Cenozoic? Why were scientists interested in determining how long it took to deposit the layer of clay at the end of the Cretaceous? What was the effect of the surprising observation scientists made? Why did scientists want more information about the dinosaur extinction at the end of the Cretaceous? Right? That's it. Fantastic. So let us see. For example, what about the third response? What was the effect of the surprising observation scientists made? In this case, as you can see, for example, this option is not correct. Why? Because right at the beginning of the reading passage, it is said that the observation the scientists made was the reason why they started to develop a new theory about the extinction of dinosaurs, right? So it is discussed in the reading passage what was the effect of the surprising observation scientists made. As you can see here, dissatisfaction with conventional explanations for dinosaurs' extinctions led to a surprising observation that, in turn, has suggested a new hypothesis. So this is something that it is discussed in the reading passage. Because, as I say, the observation they made, the discovery they made, led to something. To what? To a new hypothesis, okay? So it is discussed what was the effect of the surprising observation scientists made, right? For example, what about the second one? Why were scientists interested in determining how long it took to deposit the layer of clay at the end of the Cretaceous? What about this one? This is also something that is not our correct answer. Why? Because this is also discussed in the reading passage. If you noticed, it says here that they were interested in determining how long it took to deposit the layer of clay at the end of the Cretaceous. Why? Because they thought that by knowing it, they could also know, as you can see here, they could get an idea of how long the extinctions took by determining how long it took to deposit this 1 centimeter of clay, right? So they wanted to know how much it took for the dinosaurs to get extinct by knowing how much it took for this layer of clay, excuse me, for this layer of clay at the end of the Cretaceous to be deposited. So yes, in this case, this is also discussed, right, in the reading passage. It is talked about. Now, what about the first and the fourth option? Why is there a layer of clay between the rocks of the Cretaceous and the Cretaceous? Excuse me. Why is there a layer of clay between the rocks of the Cretaceous and Cenozoic? Let us read, for example. It says, many plants and animals disappear abruptly from the fossil record as one moves from layers of rock, documenting the end of the Cretaceous, up into rocks representing the beginning of the Cenozoic. Between the last layer of the Cretaceous rock and the first layer of the Cenozoic rock, there is often a thin layer of clay. Scientists felt that they could get an idea of how long extinctions took by determining how long it took to deposit this 1 centimeter of clay, and they thought they could determine it, etc. This is the correct answer. You know why? Because in this case, we are always discussing in the reading passage what is the use of the layer of clay in these rocks, what the scientists are planning to do with this layer of clay, how are they going to measure how old is this layer of clay, but we never discuss in the reading passage why is there a layer of clay between the rocks of the Cretaceous and Cenozoic. Did you notice that? It basically presupposes that we know what is the reason why there is this layer of clay, as I say, between the rocks of the Cretaceous and the Cenozoic, but we never receive any information informing us why there is, in the first place, this layer of clay between the rocks of the Cretaceous and the Cenozoic. Everything is talked about the layer of clay, but the reason why it exists, its use, its age, its importance, everything is discussed. Nonetheless, why is there a layer of clay? It's never answered in the reading passage. And that is the reason why, as I say, this is the correct answer. Because in the entire reading passage, there is not a single sentence that discusses why is there a layer of clay between the rocks, right? This is the correct answer. All right, dear students, do you have any question about this one? How you have to apply the criteria that I tell you? You simply have to look for textual absences. If there is no a line, a sentence in the reading passage that discusses this, that mentions this, that is your correct answer, okay? It must be textual, because maybe it suggests us why is there a layer of clay, but if it doesn't specifically say why is there a layer of clay, That is going to be our correct answer, all right? Any question, dear students, something that I could clarify here? Tell me, please, with confidence.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So the correct answer in this case will be the one that does not appear textually on the text, or I didn't understand.
Yes, exactly. The correct answer is the one that doesn't appear in the reading passage in a textual basis. That is to say, if it doesn't say textually that there is a particular sentence discussing this, for example, as I say, in this case, in the entire reading passage, there is no a sentence discussing why is there a layer of clay between the rocks of the Cretaceous. There is, for example, a sentence, there is a line in the reading passage discussing what is the purpose of this layer of clay, what are they planning to do with the layer of clay, how can we measure its age, but never we are talked about or we are informed about why is there a layer of clay, right? There is no a line, a sentence discussing that. So that is the reason why this is the correct answer. You're right. You have to look for the answer that is not textually stated in the reading passage.
Okay, thank you.
All right, fantastic, my pleasure. Any other question? Dear students, any other thing that I can clarify? No? Okay, fantastic. No more questions. There we are. Okay, so the 8th type of question, the summary question. This is actually one of the easiest type of questions to understand because as its name indicates, basically in this type of question, you're just going to summarize all that you have been informed about in the reading passage. Let me show it to you. This type of question asks to select 3 or more statements that summarize the main ideas within the entire passage. This will typically be your last question and must be responded with all the information you've grabbed from the passage. Now, remind that we are following right now on a strategy for approaching this section that is called the charge strategy, right? We talked about this the first class about the reading section. And I told you, right, it's very important for you to go about responding to questions without reading the entire passage first, right? You remind that is what the strategy says. Now, of course, think about it in this way. When you are, let's say, in the question number 9 of all your series of questions, because remind that every single reading passage contains 10 questions. After you receive your reading passage, you're going to have 10 questions about that particular reading passage, and then you move on to another one with another 10 questions about that particular reading passage, and then to a last one with another 10 questions for the third reading passage. But imagine that you are, for example, in the first reading passage, and you are in the question number 9. And to that point, dear students, although you are following the charge strategy and you have not read, let us say, the entire reading passage, and to that point, when you are in the question number 9, probably you have already grasped the general idea of the reading passage. Why? Because as we have discussed as well, our strategy, the charge strategy, is very useful and powerful because in the TOEFL exam, all the questions that we receive are always stated and they are always delivered in chronological order. That is to say, they go about asking always from the first paragraph to the last paragraph, right? The first question and the second question are about the first paragraph. The second question is about the third paragraph. The third paragraph is about the third, the third question is about the third paragraph, and so forth. So for example, if you're let's say in the 9th question, before getting into the last one, which is the 10th one, probably at that point, you already read the entire reading passage. Although you didn't do it previously before responding to the questions, by following the strategy, you are going to come up with the entire reading passage read. That is a very good, actually advantage of this strategy, that although you don't have to read the reading passage entirely before responding to your questions, when you follow the strategy at the end, you're going to end up reading the entire passage, or at least most of it. So this is important. Why? Because this type of question, the summary question, is going to be the last question you're always going to receive. This is always going to be your 10th question. And you always have to respond it at the end, okay? Please don't try to respond it at the beginning. Don't go about skipping the other questions and trying to get into the last one in order to respond it. Why? Because you need to have a general understanding of the entire reading passage, which, as I say, if you follow the charge strategy, you are going to have. Because although you're not going to read the entire reading passage before responding to the questions, what you're going to do is that by following the strategy, you, until that point, will have read at least most of the reading passage, if not the entire reading passage, okay? So let me show it to you. In this case, I don't have an example written here on my screen, but I have a video. Why? Because in this case, as I told you in the first class, there is a difference with regard to the mechanism you're going to use in order to respond, all right? And actually, I'm not going to use this video. I'm going to use my simulator in order to show it to you. Let me open this here. Here, actually. I'm going to use my simulator to show this to you. But basically, again, you're going to have some options. This is always multiple choice. And you're going to have to drag those sentences that you consider summarize the reading passage with its main points within a reply box. You're going to see right now. But it's a very easy procedure. It's not actually very difficult. So let me show it to you in the reading, answer and answer quiz mode. Let's see. So for example, we are right now in the first question. We're going to skip until the last one. Okay, here, next, next, next. Okay, we're number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9. Okay, notice that we are right now in the question number 9 of this reading passage. Now, if I go to the number 10, as you can see, this is the summary question. Basically, it is going to say right now, an introductory sentence for a brief summary of the passage is provided below. Complete the summary by selecting the 3 answer choices that express the most important ideas in the passage. Some answer choices do not belong in the summary because they express ideas that are not presented in the passage or are minor details in the passage, all right? This question is worth 2 points, okay? So please be careful. Now, here you have the first sentence they are giving you that indeed summarizes the reading passage. And what you have to do is to choose 3 other responses, 3 other of these statements that also summarize the reading passage with its main ideas. That is very important. It's dramatically important. You need to choose the answer that always summarizes the reading passage with its main idea, all right? Because many of these statements, as we are going to read right now, talks about irrelevant details, trifling sentences that have been mentioned very quickly in the reading passage, but are not main ideas or main points. But in your summary, you need to choose those answers. As I say, in this case, always give you the opportunity to summarize the main ideas or the main points made in the reading passage, okay? This is the first sentence they give you, okay? It says, fiction for young adults, a relatively new form of literature, took form as teenagers were first considered as a distinct group of readers. Okay, this is for this reading passage, of course, we have not read it, but in this case, as you can see, you have some options, right? And what you have to do in this case, as I say, is to drag this into a reply box. Sadly, here in my simulator, as I am reminding right now, the mechanism is not available. So I'm going to return to my presentation because this is how you're going to receive it in your exam. Okay, so I want you to have the complete experience of how is this going to look like on the exam. So look at this video that I recorded of an actual exam. So basically, as you can see, you're going to have there some statements. And when you read them, you have to identify those statements that you consider summarize the main points made in the reading passage. And when you locate and find them, you have to drag them within the reply box. Okay, I'm going to repeat the video. As you can see, you have the reading, you have the statements there, the sentences that all of them propose some sort of summary of the reading passage, but you just have to choose those ones which, as I say, summarize the main points of the reading passage, because many of them are going to are going to summarize the reading passage with details. And you know that when you are summarizing something, details is not something that you include, right? A summary, it's something that mentions the main point of a material, of a paper, of an article, of an investigation, whatever. So you just need to choose the answers or the sentences that, as I say, always express the main ideas and main points, all right? Let me give you some recommendations. This question will require you to drag your answers to a reply box. You are not required to click on your answer, but to drag it within a box, okay? Don't forget this question is worth several points and you should respond it once you have responded all other questions, okay? As I say, don't skip the other questions to reach this one. Respond this one always as the last question you're going to respond. Now, number two, in order to correctly choose your answers, you must be very precise in choosing only those answers conveying the central ideas of the passage. Now, let us discuss what are not the central ideas of the passage. Okay, this is what a central idea is not. All right, we're going to discuss right now what is not a central idea. A central idea is not an idea that began the passage, or central ideas are not those ones which began the passage, nor are those ideas that ended the passage, because please don't get confused. A central idea is not the first idea you receive when you're reading something, nor is the conclusion. Those are not the main points or the main ideas necessarily. Of course, they can be, but nonetheless, they are not necessarily the main ideas. Also, they are not unperceivable details. Whenever you find a detail, okay, something that was mentioned very quickly in the reading passage, that is not going to be, of course, part of the summary. That is not going to be a central idea, okay? Details are not central ideas. Moreover, something that you remind very much about the reading passage or that you remind the most is not actually necessarily the central idea. For example, maybe you are reading the reading passage and there is a part in the reading passage that you consider to be super curious. Maybe it's funny for you. You read something that makes you laugh and you remind it. So that when you are in this question, maybe you are tempted to choose a sentence that includes that part that made you laugh as a central idea. But remind, it's not necessary that the central ideas are the ideas that you remind the most, that you remember. Because maybe you remember just because it made you laugh, or you remember that idea just because it was interesting or curious. But as I say, what are the central ideas? And I'm going to tell you what are the central ideas that you need to consider in order to choose these statements that contain and include those main ideas. You must choose those answers that have triggered all discussion and data. Do you know what the word trigger means? It means detonar, right? Son las ideas detonantes. You must choose those answers that have triggered all discussion and data, que han detonado discusiones e información. Those are the central ideas. You must choose those conveying the topic that all the rest round about. There are, of course, always some ideas, right? That when you always consider them all and you put them all these ideas, you put all these ideas on a table. There are some of them that are always the center, right? That all the other ideas always surround them. So you have to look for those ideas that provoke discussion, provoke information, that are basically, as I say, triggering discussion, triggering data, included or mentioned by the author of the reading passage. Okay, those are the central ideas, and those ideas you need to be able to identify. Why? Because once you identify and know what are the main ideas of the reading passage, the ones that have triggered discussion, that have provoked data, debate, that have somehow directed and encouraged the author to talk about a topic, once you understand and once you get that, the only thing you have to do, as I say, is to choose the statements that contain such ideas, and as I have shown you, to drag them within a reply box. All right, that is what you have to do in the summary question. You choose the sentences, the statements that contain those main ideas. Remind, main ideas are those ideas in the reading passage that have triggered information, that have provoked discussion, that have somehow encouraged the author to include information, to include some particular point. Those are the main ideas. All right, that is what you have to include in your response here in order to respond correctly. Okay, is there any question, your students, about this type of question? Any question, any concern, any doubt? Please tell me. No questions? Clear. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nathalie, Paulina. Okay, so there we are. New type of question. This is actually a very okay. Alexander, you have a question, please tell me. Yes, Alexander, have a question? No, it was a mistake. No, okay, fantastic. I guess it was a mistake. All right, let's continue. All right, there we are. Let's continue. Now, the ninth type of question is called sentence insertion question. This question will ask you to insert an extra sentence to one of the passages you have read. When you click on one of the answers, the software will display a preview of how would the sentence look in the tentative place you're placing it into. This is a very, let's say, entertaining question. Why? Because you're going to be required to, as I say, insert an extra phrase within a reading passage that you have already read. Let me show it to you, right? It's very interesting. So let us read this reading passage, okay? And then we're going to explain. But now, please pay attention to the fact that in the reading passage we have here on the right side of my screen, there are some spaces that are highlighted with yellow and that also contain a letter, A, B, C, or D. You're going to understand why are we having those spaces highlighted with yellow and with those letters, but pay attention to them. It says, air has not been common at Earth's surface since the very beginning of the planet's history. Because it usually exists in a metallic state, it was preferentially incorporated in Earth's core as the planet cooled and consolidated. Air is found in high concentrations in some meteorites in which the solar system's original chemical composition is preserved. Even today, microscopic meteorites continually bombard Earth, falling on both land and sea. By measuring how many of these meteorites fall to Earth over a given period of time, scientists can estimate how long it might have taken to deposit the observed amount of air in the boundary clay. These calculations suggest that a period of about 1 million years would have been required. However, all the reliable evidence suggests that the deposition of the boundary clay could not have taken 1 million years. So the unusually high concentration of air seems to require a special explanation. Now that we have read this reading passage, let us go to the question. It says, in paragraph 5 of the passage, there is a missing sentence. It tells you. The paragraph is repeated below and shows 4 letters, A, B, C, and D, that indicate where the following sentence could be added. And here you have the sentence that you have to insertar, in any point of the reading passage that they are allowing you to. In this case, the sentence says, consequently, the idea that the air in the boundary clay came from microscopic meteorites cannot be accepted, right? So as you can see, this is a sentence that you need to insert in one of those spaces or spots that ETS is giving you. And what are those spaces or spots available for you to insert the sentence? A, B, C, or D. And this is always going to be the mechanism that ETS is going to use in order for you to know where can you include your sentence, all right? They're always going to put a letter in a space that is available for you to choose and to insert the sentence in one of those, okay? A, B, C, and D. So you need to choose the correct answer in this case by clicking on the letter that you consider is the space where this sentence could be added. Now let us see some recommendations. Let's go. Your objective in this question is to find where can the rendered sentence best fit in the paragraph. Sometimes it will be evident to you because something will appear to lack in the paragraph. This is very important. Sometimes it's super easy to respond this one because when the author is writing something and ETS takes it out or takes it off, it happens that it is noticeable, right? When you are reading something and there is a missing part, it's very simple to notice, hey, there is something lacking here, right? Because ETS is basically extracting something and requesting you to reinsert it within the reading passage. That is a possibility that you're going to read it and you're going to notice quickly, hey, but something appears to lack here for this reading passage to make sense, right? So whenever you receive this case, it's super easy and evident for you to respond, right? And to choose, okay, this sentence has to be inserted here because without it, it doesn't make sense. Likewise, there is another case. Paragraphs often sustain themselves without the alluded sentences, okay? Because as I say, sometimes ETS just extracts the sentence and asks you to reinsert it. But sometimes they just give you an extra sentence that you have to insert. And the problem is that the reading passage can sustain itself without that sentence. So it's going to be more complicated for you to determine where could I insert this particular sentence if it looks like the passage can be sustained by itself and it makes sense without the sentence. So when that happens to you, you will sometimes have to find where does this sentence complement the paragraph harmonically. So when you read the passage and you see very easily and simply that there is a part in the reading passage that seems to lack something, okay, then you go and insert the phrase there, of course, because there is something lacking. But when the sentence, or excuse me, when the reading passage appears to be consistent, to be sustainable without the extra sentence, the criteria you need to use in order to choose the correct answer is always picking that letter that allows you to insert the extra sentence into a place that complements the paragraph harmonically, okay? In this second case, when the reading passage seems to be sustained without the extra sentence, what you have to do is to complement, all right? You need to choose a place where the sentence could complement the information mentioned in the paragraph, but very important, harmonically. It doesn't have to disrupt anything, because if it disrupts the information, for example, if something was already talking about other point, but you want to insert the phrase in that part where you actually ended talking about that point, doesn't make sense. As I say, you need to complement harmonically, all right? Very important. So in order to correctly choose your answers, you must choose a place within the paragraph where your sentence does not repeat already mentioned information. That is very important. If you are inserting the phrase where in a place where information that is very similar to the one of the sentence is already mentioned, then don't insert it there because you will be repeating information, right? Moreover, you should include it where it doesn't, excuse me, you should include it where it doesn't disrupt the reasoning train of the portion. Your objective will always be to fill a missing part, as I told you in the first case, or to complement where the context allows you to. All right, that is the idea. You fill a missing part or you complement when the passage seems to be sustainable without the extra sentence. You just have to complement where the reading passage allows you to do it harmonically. All right. So let us go to this example. Where can we insert this phrase? Consequently, the idea that the air in the boundary clay came from microscopic meteorites cannot be accepted. And here we have the four options. So I'm going to tell you where could this be inserted? Well, this could be actually inserted in the option C. All right, this should be inserted in the option C. I'm going to tell you why. Because let us use, for example, the sentence B. It says, however, other reliable evidence suggests that the deposition of the boundary clay could not have taken 1 million years. And now, what does it say next? It says, so basically, the sentence before the letter C, it's giving you an argument, right? It's telling you, hey, it's impossible for these meteorites to get into our boundary clay in 1 million years. It's impossible. So it's concluding, right? After the letter C, there is a conclusion. So the unusually high concentration of air seems to require a special explanation. Okay? So as you can see, after the letter C, we are simply concluding something that we need another hypothesis, explanation for this element or mineral in our planet here, apart from the theory or the hypothesis that says that meteorites were the cause of this element. So this sentence that says, consequently, the idea that air is in the boundary clay came from microscopic meteorites cannot be accepted, must go in the spot number C, or in the spot C. Why? Why must it go there? It must go there in this case because the other sentence that comes after this one, it's a conclusion, right? It's a conclusion. It says, the unusually high concentration of air seems to require an special explanation. That is to say, it's telling you, okay, now that we have discarded this particular theory, it doesn't work, we need to look for an alternative explanation for this phenomenon. So this sentence couldn't be part of the spot D, because in the spot D, we are already talking about other explanation. We have ended talking about meteorites and these microscopic meteorites that are proposed as an explanation for this phenomena. We have already finished talking about that, right? But nonetheless, in the spot C, we have the chance to include, let's say, a final argument for us to reject the hypothesis later, right? This would be like the last argument that the reading passage is mentioning for us to neglect and to object this particular reading passage and then to move on to another hypothesis. But yes, as I say, it's a matter of that. For example, it couldn't be an A because and to this point, we are actually talking about the meteorites hypothesis very positively. Look at it. It says, by measuring how many of these meteorites fall to Earth over a given period of time, scientists can estimate how long it might have taken to deposit the observed amount of Earth in the boundary clay. As you can see in this case, we are actually talking positively about it, right? So we cannot very disruptively, in a disruptive manner, to conclude that it's not a good theory. We are talking about this theory positively, right? We're talking about good things of this theory. So when you are talking about something and you are saying positive things about that particular matter or subject, you cannot like without any particular warn or without any particular let's say notification start to speak badly about it, right? You just continue talking about it positively, and at some point you stop talking about it positively, and then you say but, right, and you continue and you say something else. But as I say, this could be in the spot number C, because in the other options A, B, we are talking about positive things of the hypothesis. So it would be irrational to postulate or to believe that in those particular spots we will be entering a phrase that, as you can see, the phrase that we're trying to insert is a very negative sentence, right? The idea that air in the boundary clay came from microscopic meteorites cannot be accepted. It's basically concluding that the theory is garbage, is a bad theory. So how could we include that in a part where we are talking positive things about the theory? It must always go at the end when we have already discarded the theory and we are trying to say, now we need to look for an alternative explanation, right? So that is the reason why this is the correct answer. Is there any question, dear students, about the question, what you need to do? Please tell me. Any question, any clarification that I could make? It's clear. Fantastic. Just give me a second. I want to say my other students that we're going to start 10 minutes delayed. All right, fantastic. So if it is clear then, and we don't have more questions, we are going to go to the last type of question. Complete the table question. This question will ask you to organize the ideas in certain categories with relationships. You will have to drag the answers which you believe correspond to the category boxes you will have commonly. You will be able to drag 2 of these sentences within each box. Let me show it to you with a picture. This is more understandable with a visual reference. Look at the photo I have here. As you can see, it says, drag your answer choices to the spaces where they belong. To remove an answer choice, drag it back and click, view next. So here you have, let's say it's basically it's a box, right? You have 2 different boxes. The first one says fossil analysis in Cuba and California, and the other one says radiocarbon dating in 2 Creeks fossil forest. So these are boxes, as I say. And the title you see on those boxes is basically a category. One box has a category and the other one has a category. Final analysis in Cuba and California is a category, and the other box has another category, radiocarbon dating in 2 Creeks fossil forest. So in this type of question, that is, by the way, a very rare type of question. People don't normally receive this question, or if they receive it, they just receive one of these questions in the entire reading section. This is like the I don't know how to mention it, but it's like the ugly brother of the family of all these type of questions, because ETS never put this question on the exam. It happens to some test takers, but if you receive it, you're just going to receive it once in one particular question, but no more than that. As I say, this is very similar to the summary question. Why? Because they're going to give you these 2 boxes, and what you have to do is to drag some statements. As you can see, the statements would be the ones on the right side of my screen right now, and you have to drag those statements that you consider match the categories in the boxes. It's as simple as that. But as I say, this is a question that rarely appears on the exam. But what you have to do is to understand the categories. Of course, you're going to be able to understand the categories when you read the passage in the exam if you receive a question like this. read the categories, and you have to drag these answers when you consider that one of these statements, for example, match the category of the box. Let me give an example. This illustration here, I obtained it from a passage that was about some analysis that they were making of dinosaurs in California and Cuba, and also in a fossil forest. For example, I remind that the first statement that says tar and benzene are used in the analytical process, I remind that this had to do with the study that they were making in California and Cuba. So because I know that tar and benzene were used in the analytical process in the experiments that some scientists were doing about dinosaurs in Cuba and California, I would take this sentence, this statement, and I would drag it within that category. As I say, you're able to drag two different sentences within each box, okay? Two different sentences. That means that you're going to have some of these sentences not inserted within the boxes. So when that happens, don't worry about that, okay? You're not going to insert all of these statements. The same case for the summary question. Maybe if you're wondering that, not all the statements are going to be included, of course, but in this case, it's just two of them into each category, okay? So for example, the other one that says over 70 tests were done on fossil samples, I remind that that particular one was part of the category that says radiocarbon dating in Two Creeks fossil forest. So what would I do? I would take it and I would drag it within that box because I know it matches the category. Super simple, right? That's what we have to do. When you receive this one, you consider these two boxes and the titles as categories, and you drag those statements and sentences that you consider match the categories. Because of course, in the reading passage, they were connected, they were part of a same group, of a same series of points or data. You just drag them within the categories they belong to. All right? Is there any question about this one? As I say, not very likely you're going to receive it, but anyways, it's super simple to respond. Just remember that these are categories, and you have to drag the statements that match that category, no more than that. Any question, dear students? Is there any question? Anything that I could clarify? All right, Natalie says it's clear. What about you, Paulina, Camila, Guadalupe, Lucia, Alexander? Are you fine? Do you consider this is clear? Can I complement something? All right, fantastic, Lucia. Clear. Okay, it's clear. I hope that most of you are able to join me tomorrow for the practice. Nonetheless, for those of you who are not going to be part of it, don't worry. I'm going to be sending the material in that immediate moment for you to read it in your free time. And tomorrow you're going to be able to practice everything we have learned to this point and to apply it to real questions without any help. And then we are going to correct the answers and to examine them one by one. Okay, fantastic. So then we're going to stop the class here if you don't have more questions. Remember that, by the way, here you have, thank you. Don't forget to practice, okay? I'm going to send, as I say, material tomorrow morning. You can send a WhatsApp message whenever you want to my personal chat, okay? I will respond as fast as I'm available. There you have my cell phone with the country code of Bolivia. If you're not from Bolivia, please send me a message whenever you have any doubt, anything that I could clarify, or any help that I could give you within my possibilities. I'm going to be glad to help you, okay? So please remind it, and that's it, all right? Tomorrow we're going to continue with this. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and please don't go. I need to take your assistance, and dear students, please help me with the traditional poll that we always fill, okay? You know that you help me a lot filling it positively, all right? So please help me with the poll, and now I'm going to take your assistance. If you have any question, please speak up, and I'm going to be listening to you. All right. This is your name, please. Where is this? Fantastic here. So it's here present Guzman Guadalupe.
Present.
Thank you very much, Guzman. What about Sonia Raquel Nolasco? All right, Sonia told me that she wouldn't be able to attend today. Nathalie here.
Present.
Thank you very much, Nathalie. What about John Ariel? Is here John? Right, John has not been able to make it. What about Grados Lucia?
Present.
Thank you very much, Lucia. What about Reyes Camila? Are you here?
Present.
Thank you very much, dear Camila. Fantastic. What about Paulina Jasmine?
Present.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. And finally, Alexander Christopher. Yes, yes. Don't worry, dear Alexander. Don't worry. Yes, yes. I understand. But you can see you can rewatch the recorded class anyways. There you're gonna have a better connection, and the class is going to be clear anyways. All right. Don't worry about that. You can rewatch the class whenever you want, and I'm putting you present. Okay, so don't worry about it. Fantastic. So a pleasure to be with you. All right. Tonight, tomorrow, please. I see you in the morning. In your cases at 10:30 a.m. Bolivian time. Please make your conversions if you live in other country, and if you're able to attend, please join me. All right. It's going to be a wonderful time. We're going to practice this reading section. If you don't, okay, if you're not able, don't worry. I'm going to be sending the material for you to practice in your free time to the WhatsApp group with all the responses for you to review your practice later. Okay. Fantastic. So have a wonderful night, dear students. I see you tomorrow. Okay. See you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, teacher.
Bye,
Thank you.
teacher. Have a great day.
Thank you.